Hey guys, it's been a little while since my last update. You would have seen my November update video by now, which would have been how the car was left before the end of the season. I did do one track day after that last video you saw, and then pretty much drove the car until the weather was no longer there, so to say. And since then, the car has been on stands. We are doing a little refresh over the winter here, and I'll explain why. It is mostly to do with the dyno results, which that video didn't really get a ton of views, but it is there. And I do go over the power that it made or didn't make. I'll maybe put it on the screen. I'll put a dynograph or something so you guys can see. But yeah, the car was underperforming significantly. It was making a lot less power than it should have been, given the mods, but that's okay. That prompted our little refresh, off-season refresh. So, with the power that the car made, we knew something was going on with this guy. Either the engine or some sort of restriction, something somewhere. So I did a couple of health checks, and I don't have any video of any of this. I was too busy just getting it done. So what I'll do is I'll post the pictures on the screen of what exactly the results were and what happened. But anyways, the car showed perfect compression. It was 180 across the board. All 4 cylinders were perfect, 180 psi of compression, dead even, which is amazing. But compression test doesn't really tell the full story, because based on those numbers, you'd think, well, this is a brand new engine, it's perfectly fine. But art not so. I did do a leak down test, and that's where we kind of found a couple of things here. So I can post the pictures of the results of the leak down test. I can post them on the screen just so that you guys can see what exactly the results were, what we're working with. Pretty much 2 cylinders were completely dead. Okay, this thing was leaking down bad in 2 cylinders. You could actually hear it. You could hear it actually on the exhaust side. So exhaust valves probably weren't sealing 100%. One of them sounded like it was on the intake side leaking for almost 100%. So 1 cylinder intake side, 1 cylinder exhaust side. Yeah, so 2 cylinders were completely done. Narrowed it down to being something in the head, so the valve's not seating, or maybe a head gasket. But anyways, the head came off. Again, I'll show some pictures here of the process. I didn't video any of it just because we are winter. It's very cold. I just wanted to get it done to the best of my abilities. It's the first time I've done kind of like a top-end rebuild on an engine with the block still in the car. Let me tell you, much easier to take it out, because trying to get in here to get all of the timing components, yeah, that sucked. And having to drop the subframe, because you do have to drop the subframe to get to the oil pan, that also sucks. But anyways, without further ado, I'll go over now what's changing for 2023. All right, excuse the hood, guys, it's cold, so got to keep the heat in there. But let's go over what I have planned for this for 2023. It is kind of like a mid-season refresh, I'm gonna say, more than anything. What we have done is the head went to a local machine shop, and it got a decking, just the minimum amount to make sure it was straight. I told him actually if it didn't need it, don't do it, but he did take off just the bare minimum. I don't know the exact spec, but maybe a thou, just very minor. It looked really good, the surface. He did a great job. The head was hot tanked, cleaned up. He did the exhaust valve guides. So what they do is they install a sleeve, because the exhaust valve guides are what wear out very quickly. They come from factory almost worn out, and that's a lot of the oil burning that these engines have. A lot of the oil consumption is from those exhaust valve guides. So I had those sleeved, or lined as they call them, which is apparently a very good solution. So that was done. I had him clean up all the valves. I had him recut all the valves. So he cut the valve seats in the head, and then he cut the actual valves themselves. So perfect seal. He also performed a back cut on all the valves, intake side, not exhaust, just intake side back cut. And I'll post a picture on the screen of what the back cut does. But basically, the stock valve, there's a lot of area that can be machined down to allow for better airflow, especially at low lift. So on your low cam or around town, low lift, by back cutting the valve, you just allow more air to flow around it. Same thing works at high lift, high, you know, when you're at the top of the RPM, when you're in VTEC, you're at, you know, 8,000 RPM. More flow is more flow, very simple. So that was a nice little upgrade. I didn't ask him to do that, he just did it. I don't know if it was extra money or if he included it in the price, but he was very reasonable, and his turnaround time was fantastic. It took him about a week, 2 weeks, I think 2 weeks max, to have the head from the moment I dropped it off to him to the moment I picked it up. And that includes a weekend in there, so awesome. Definitely a great turnaround. That guy is super good to deal with. Definitely glad to have him just up the street. I'll definitely be dealing with him in the future. Good machine shop. It's hard to find. He knows K-Series, this guy. He's done a lot of them for another local shop that builds a lot of Hondas, so good experience with the K-Series. I did pick up another cylinder head, which we have here. This is a K20Z1 head. The main reason I bought that head is because it came with a set of BC Stage 2 camshafts. Now we've got BC Stage 2 cams here with SuperTech valve train. So I'll put the part numbers on the screen so you can see exactly what I use. But I've got the SuperTech dual valve train setup with titanium retainers, steel keepers. It's not the best combo, but it is for higher RPM. Titanium has a service life. It does fatigue over time, so I'm probably going to swap the retainers every 2 seasons, depending on how often I go out, just as a safety precaution, because that's not something you want failing on you. But anyways, so the head has got a mild build on it. BC Stage 2 camshafts, dual valve train from SuperTech, titanium retainers. Everything else in there is OEM valves. Everything else stock, no porting, nothing like that. So while the head was off getting refreshed at the machine shop, took it upon myself to do the oil pump upgrade with the camshafts, with the valve springs. I wanted to rev the motor out higher. I wanted above 8,500. I wanted 9 grand. There's a few reasons why that's not going to happen for my use case. Yes, you can rev one of these to 9,000 RPM with the oil pump upgrade, but not going to last very long. You're kind of on borrowed time. For a street car, it doesn't matter, because you'd only spend, you know, a second or two at 9,000, and then you're shifting into the next gear, shifting into the next gear. On the racetrack, it's different. When you're operating in such a small window between 6 to 9,000 RPM, and it's constantly in that range, you're just fatiguing the material. The pistons actually fail. The aluminum fatigues at high RPMs, and that's it. It'll let go. You'll rip the pin right out of the piston, and bye-bye engine, bye-bye head, bye-bye everything. So that high RPM stuff, maybe I'll have a map with a 9,000 RPM limiter just for the street for some fun. But I'll probably limit it, to be honest, at 8,400, which is basically stock. Kind of sucks, but I need the motor to give me a season. I do take it to the track a lot. Does see a lot of high RPM. It ain't worth it. It's already got high mileage. Anyways, while it was out getting redone, I did drop the subframe. In order to do that, you gotta have to drop the subframe to take the oil pan down. Reason I took the oil pan down is because I did a 4-piston ported RRC oil pump. So RRC is the type R oil pump, not the type S. There's a reason I did that. So the reason I did the RRC oil pump is because, number one, there's no cutting or modification required to fit the girdle on this engine. It just bolts right up. Number two, it works better with the oil pan. You don't need to fill in extra oil because the actual pickup tube's the correct length, the correct distance from the bottom of the pan. It fits perfectly. So that's another reason to do the RRC. It is more expensive because of these reasons, but it is what it is. It's going to be kind of a forever piece. It'll go on the built motor, go on any engine in the future. Installation was straightforward. You do have to plug the one port, which there are plenty of videos showing how to plug the oiling port for the balance shafts, and you do have to modify the chain tensioner, the spring-loaded tensioner, just because one of the holes, it does not fit exactly perfect, so you got to make it a little bigger so you can get the bolt in, but not a big deal. Other than that, everything else bolts right up just like OEM. Everything fits like stock. I did the Drag Cartel timing chain guard, which I'll post a picture of here. And one other trick piece I did, just because, again, it was one of those while you're in there type of modifications, and I'll post another picture, but I did a Unit 2 oil pan baffle, and I actually got them to weld it in. So Unit 2 is local to me. They are 20 minutes away, not even. So I called them up, I ordered the baffle, they had it in stock. I went over to their shop, I brought my oil pan that I had to do a pretty thorough cleaning process on, so soaked it in dish soap and hot water, rinsed it, soak, repeat, scrub, degreaser, scrub, rinse, repeat, soak. Pretty much that aluminum needs to be as clean as you can humanly possibly get it for them to weld the baffle in. So I did that, they welded it in, everything went well, and now that's on the car. So that's another one of our cool little trick pieces. So we've got our Type R oil pump, we've got our baffle, and we've got our built, semi-built head with stage 2 BC cams, and SuperTech valve train. Now, the last piece that this car is going to be receiving, or the last two pieces I should say, is I do have a J37 throttle body with the hybrid adapter. I did port this already, so the RRC is ported to 70 mil to match the J37. And then the last piece, this. I do have plans to still put a custom titanium exhaust on this, but that is expensive and that is going to have to wait. So we are not doing that yet, not this season anyways. But because I have the factory catback, that's really killing me on power. So the 3-inch Rev9 it is, that'll be fine. I'm going to open that box in a second just to kind of show you guys a little overview on that. But okay guys, the last piece I wanted to touch on was my Rev9 exhaust. So it includes a nice little hardware pack. It's got a decent looking little gasket. It includes 3 bolts, 3 nuts. There's 3 of these serrated washers. Now I did find a 4th one in the box. Maybe that was a mistake, or maybe there's supposed to be 6 of them and 2 are missing, but that I don't know. Anyways, let's look at the actual kit here. So V-band, this is for the axle back portion, so from here to here. This is where the other V-band is. This is the mid pipe here. Very clearly the axle back. Beautiful looking muffler, beautiful looking welds. Not really much to say here. I mean, this thing was 600 Canadian, which is cheap. It's like 450 American. The welds look great. Even internally, it looks very nice. Polished, the entire pipes, all the exhaust is polished. Slip joint clamp. Seems very high quality, very springy. That is for this piece here. This is the main piece that bolts to your header, and then it is a slip joint here. And the reason that is because this exhaust will fit FA5 and FG2, so sedan or coupe. It is going to be a perfect fit, so that is why. But I just wanted to give a little look-see over on the exhaust here, just to show you guys kind of what this looks like. There are other videos, and of course when I install it, there'll be a review on sound and whatnot. I'm going to weigh it, and I'm going to compare it to the weight of the factory setup that I have on the car. This should be lighter, which will be nice, and then once I go titanium, even more light. Last thing I wanted to touch on was my wheel and tire package. I am switching up. I'm going to be going with the Nankang CRS. I wasn't overly happy with so just before the camera died there, I just want to get this in. So I wasn't really happy with the RT660s in terms of longevity. They just don't last. I had 3 separate tires delaminate on me, and with a 170 wheel car, that shouldn't be happening. I used to be a little bit hard on tires and brakes. Not so much anymore. My driving style's changed, so that was a real bummer when those tires fell apart on me. And then Falken's warranty's terrible. They'll tell you that it's warranted, and then they will do nothing for you. They totally make it a nightmare. So Nankang CRS this season, maybe I'll find a 10th or 2 there. Those tires are supposed to be kind of almost the best, aside from the Yoko AO52s. The Nankangs are pretty much a direct replica of the Yokos, so if it's like that exhaust system, they should be pretty good, because the clones, the copies, they're getting pretty good these days. And the CRS have definitely laid down some very fast lap time. That concludes the 2023 season refresh.